how's everyone doing? Today I have a Blu-ray collection update with 5 releases. So let's go ahead and check them out, and as always, if you've seen any of these movies, definitely let me know what you think of them. And first up is Goon from Magnet Home Entertainment, and it's written by Jay Baruchel and Evan Goldberg, the co-writers of Superbad and Pineapple Express. So you kind of know what you're in for right there, what kind of brand of humor you're looking for. But this is actually a really enjoyable hockey comedy movie, and you don't really see too many of those these days. Besides like the Mighty Ducks ones, which were more like kids ones, the only other one I could think of are the Slapshot movies. And Seann William Scott plays Doug the Thug Glatt, and this movie was based off a minor league hockey player named Doug Smith, and towards the end of the credits you actually see some of the actual fight scenes of Doug Smith's career, so that's kind of pretty cool to see that. And basically, Doug is kind of a slow-witted guy. He's a bouncer, and everybody else in his family are doctors and stuff like that. And so he kind of feels like an outcast. And his best friend, who's Jay Baruchel, who actually is one of the co-writers of the film, stars in as well. And he has his own kind of like a hockey show. It's kind of like one of those local access things. And so he brings it to a hockey game, and Jay Baruchel's character is egging on one of the hockey players that's in the penalty box. And so the guy comes up, and I think he threw something at him too. So he gets out of the hockey penalty box, and he comes up into the stands, and Seann William Scott character Doug, gets in front of him and knocks him out essentially. And so from there, the home team kind of sees that and kind of hires him as kind of like a goon, where he basically, fights everybody. He's the enforcer essentially. And this is a minor league team, and one of the stars from the minor league hockey team was a really big young star until he got injured and basically knocked out from Liev Schreiber's character, Ross the Boss Ray. And I really like Liev Schreiber in this movie as well, and just recently started kind of playing tough guy roles. I always remember him playing like kind of dorky roles or romantic comedy kind of roles, kind of like shy and awkward, but now he's playing tough roles. He was Sabretooth in the Wolverine movie, and this one he's a big brooding guy, Ross the Boss Ray. So it was really cool. He's tough guy, really grisly. And Liev Schreiber's character is kind of in a crossroads of his career. He's kind of ending the career because he's the tough guy enforcer, and Seann William Scott is basically the young version of him. And so of course they're going to have that showdown there on rival teams at one point. And of course Liev Schreiber's character knocked out the young star who's now on Seann William Scott's team, and Seann William Scott is basically he has to protect the young star, and he's the enforcer. Now, a couple of the drawbacks about this movie was the fact that Seann William Scott's character, he's a little slow-witted. He basically can't really formulate a sentence at all. He says like 1 or 2 words usually, but then there's a part where he's talking to his parents and things like that. He has a really kind of profound speech right there, and everything is really coherent. It seemed out of place considering the rest of the movie. He can barely even say anything. And Eugene Levy plays the father, so that's great to see him in another role as well. And Alison Pill, who plays the love interest Eve, is actually engaged in real life to Jay Baruchel, who is one of the actors and co-writers of the movie. And she kind of reminds me of Ellen Page a little bit. Kind of has the same kind of quirkiness to her, and almost like a very kind of a similar look as well, at least in this movie. But basically this is a feel-good movie. It's a hockey comedy movie, it's a sports comedy movie. So if you're into like Slapshot, I would say definitely give this one a shot. The only thing I didn't like again were the fact that it was kind of one-dimensional on the team, that only the one character could score, and that Seann William Scott character is kind of very one-dimensional as well. Doesn't really say too many things until that one part which seemed out of place, and he just kind of slow-witted, and just fights a lot. And he's good heart though. He has a good heart to him, but it just kind of seemed one-dimensional. But overall, it's still a very enjoyable movie, and definitely kind of surprised me by how much I did enjoy it. It's a feel-good hockey comedy movie, and I would definitely say check this one out. And I'll go ahead and show you. There's a nice slipcover right there, and there's the back. And there's Jay Baruchel right there, and there's the disc artwork right there. And the showdown at the end between Liev Schreiber's character and Seann William Scott's character, that was a brutal scene. And the movie is predictable because, again, it is very formulaic, and it is a feel-good kind of movie, but very enjoyable as well. So there you go, Goon from Magnet Home Entertainment. And next up from Warner Brothers Home Entertainment is Journey to Mysterious Island, and this stars Michael Caine, The Rock, Scott Hutchinson, Vanessa Hudgens, and Luis Guzman. So a great cast, and this is basically an unrelated sequel to Journey to the Center of the Earth with Brendan Fraser, which you can totally skip that movie. You don't need to see that movie to see this one. You can go in here fresh and clean, and really I think this was a more enjoyable movie as well. Right off the bat, I'm just going to tell you this is more geared towards kids. As an adult, if you have kids, you'll definitely appreciate it, and if you are a younger viewer, you'll definitely appreciate it more than an adult. And of course this is based on the Jules Verne novel, and this is just, fantasy action. It has some good comedic moments in here as well. And one thing I really appreciate about this movie is the lavish set pieces and just the whole fantasy aspect. Really imaginative. And the only way this is related to Journey to the Center of the Earth is the one character, Scott Hutchinson, who's in both movies. His character, Sean Anderson, is in this one again. And he's basically starts out in the beginning of the movie where he's kind of like a troublemaker. He's riding on his motorcycle. The police are chasing him. It's a high-speed chase. It goes to a neighborhood. It ends up crashing into a pool. And The Rock is there, kind of gets him out of the trouble. The Rock plays his stepdad, and they don't have a good relationship. And you find out that Scott Hutchinson's character broke into a satellite facility to kind of intercept a transmission that came from his grandfather, and nobody's seen his grandfather for a couple of years, so he's trying to figure out where he is, and he finds out that he found, the mysterious island, and there's kind of this code that you can't decrypt, and The Rock's character ends up decrypting it, and there's all these different clues, and you find them through all these different fantasy novels, and The Rock puts it together, and he finds the map, and to bond with him, he decides to go with him to the mysterious island. Now, once they get to this one area, they're trying to find a plane to take him to the mysterious island, and nobody will take him there because they say, oh, there's no island there, and anybody that travels near that area, their plane crashes, so nobody's willing to do it, except for Luis Guzman's character, who personally kind of made the movie for me. I really enjoyed his character, and Vanessa Hudgens plays his daughter, so they have this plane, and they end up taking them to the mysterious island. They get close, and there's this big, kind of tornado, and it kind of sucks them in, and they end up shipwrecked on the island, and their plane is destroyed, and they're there, and they're trying to figure out what's going on, and find Michael Caine, who is Sean's grandfather, and they find Michael Caine, and they find all these big giant bees and bugs and giant lizards. Basically, things that are small are now big on the island, and things that were big are now small on the island. Like they find an elephant, but it's really small. And I like kind of those optical illusions they have in this as well. Like you see the elephant in the foreground, and then when it gets closer to them, you realize it's really small. I like that. They pick up the elephant, it's all cuddly and cute, but then you have the big giant bees chasing them and things like that, and the big lizard. I thought that was a really cool scene. And again, I like the set pieces in this, and one of the things in the special features they show are some of the set pieces and how it's made, like the big giant flowers, and they have this treehouse where Michael Caine's character lives, and I thought that was really cool. They went more in depth about the treehouse in the special features. It kind of shows all these different things, how it was made from the crashed boat, and just kind of shows all the different things they didn't actually even show in the movie, so I kind of appreciated that. And so basically they're all stuck there, and then they find out that the island is slowly sinking, and they have to find out a way to get off the island, and basically they have to find Captain Nemo's Nautilus, his ship, and they're basically just trying to survive and get out while they still can. And like I said before, this is more geared towards kids. It is a fun fantasy kind of action movie, but if you're younger, you'll definitely appreciate it more. And it does look fantastic on Blu-ray. It looks and sounds great, and it has some really interesting special features as well. Great release by Warner Brothers Home Entertainment. Comes with a nice slipcover right there. And then there's the back right there. And then there's the Blu-ray disc, there's the digital copy code, and then there's the DVD and digital copy disc. And Luis Guzman really cracks me up. I think the best part of the movie for me was the interaction between The Rock and Luis Guzman. Just really great chemistry right there. But some of the criticism I have about this movie is the script is weak, the dialogue is weak, even the acting seemed a little kind of forced. And there's one scene that seemed really kind of weird and out of place. When they first meet Vanessa Hudgens' character, kind of zooms in on her breasts, and that seems really kind of odd, especially with the tone of the rest of the movie, where it's really kind of like a kid's movie, essentially. And that one scene just kind of seemed out of place. And then there's the scene where The Rock keeps, flexing his pecs and making his pec muscles dance. It's kind of goofy, but a little weird too, but overall, it's a family fun movie, and if you're younger or you have kids, it's definitely one you should check out. And next up from Mill Creek Home Entertainment is New York Stories. I thought this was kind of a really interesting movie. It's basically 3 stories, and each story is directed by just fantastic directors. One story is directed by Francis Ford Coppola, another by Martin Scorsese, and then the third by Woody Allen. And all of these stories are set in New York City. And first up you have Martin Scorsese's story, which is basically about Nick Nolte. He's a painter, and he's kind of fascinated by Rosanna Arquette. He hires her as an assistant, and she's just basically kind of amused to him in a way. They have sex, and she just kind of isn't into it anymore. She tries to get away, but he keeps drawing her back in. And basically he kind of feeds off that, and they kind of fight, and they don't get along too great. But you see him painting, and the way he is just kind of very eccentric and very abrasive, essentially. But it was very intriguing, and I really did enjoy the dynamic of it. I really did enjoy the performances by Nick Nolte and Rosanna Arquette. And the second story is the weakest by far, in my opinion, Francis Ford Coppola's story, and it's basically about a young girl whose parents are off, and she's in this fancy hotel. Her father is a famous flutist, and her mother is doing photography in India, and they're kind of separated, but then she finds out that they're trying to get back together. basically she's at the hotel by herself, and she realizes that she wants to be with the family. So when the father goes off to play his flute in different areas all across the country, she decides to convince the mother to go and let's take a trip to Paris, and then after that we'll go see father play. So at the end you kind of see they're trying to work on the relationship, all three of them together, and actually be a family and go everywhere together as a family. It's kind of like a heartwarming story, but there's nothing too special about it, and by far the weakest of the three. And next up is Woody Allen's story, which is very typical Woody Allen, very kitschy and very neurotic. He has the mother issues, and basically his mother's just really overbearing, and he's engaged, and the mother basically hates the lady, and one day she disappears, and then she ends up being in the sky. They go to this like magician, and he puts her in the box, and she disappears. Nobody knows where it happens to her, so some time passes, and nobody still knows where she is, and then finally she appears in the sky. I know it's really kind of goofy, but it really works. And I find it to be very entertaining. And she's in the sky, and Woody Allen's just freaking out. He's trying to end his life. Even in the trailer, you see him dipping his finger in waters and putting it in the light socket. And I just thought that was really funny. It's typical neurotic Woody Allen. If you're a fan of Woody Allen, definitely check this one out. I really enjoy Woody Allen's story the most out of this one. Woody Allen's story and Martin Scorsese's story were really enjoyable. Francis Ford Coppola one, by far the weakest link. I would definitely recommend this one though, especially for Martin Scorsese and Woody Allen's stories in this one. Really enjoyable. And the first story by Martin Scorsese is called Life Lessons, and the second one by Francis Ford Coppola is called Life Without Zoe, and the third one by Woody Allen is called Oedipus Rex. Life Lessons also stars Steve Buscemi, and Life Without Zoe has Chris Elliott in it for a moment, and you have a slightly younger Larry David and Mia Farrow in Oedipus Rex. And you have some nice interior artwork for New York Stories as well, with Woody Allen right there. And there's the disc artwork. Definitely some great romance, comedy, and drama in this one. So New York Stories, released by Mill Creek Home Entertainment. And next up is A Perfect World, directed by Clint Eastwood. Also stars Clint Eastwood, and also stars Kevin Costner and Laura Dern. Kevin Costner is an escaped convict, and he takes this little kid hostage, and he's driving across the country. And Clint Eastwood is a Texas Ranger who's basically trying to find him and track him down. And Kevin Costner killed somebody along the way, and so basically Clint Eastwood is trying to find him before he kills more people, and to save the kid as well. But Kevin Costner's character and the little kid, they form a bond, kind of like a fatherly bond, because Kevin Costner's character, he had some issues with his father. His father left him when he was really young, and the little boy, his father left him as well. So they kind of bond, and they get along really well. But then towards the end of the movie, you kind of see the different dynamic that happens. I really think this is a very underrated movie, and if you're a fan of Clint Eastwood movies, I would definitely check this one out. I love some of the cinematography in here, and then the one scene with the duct tape towards the end of the movie, that scene was really awesome, very tense and palpable, especially with the music playing as well. Kevin Costner was awesome in this one. And another underrated Kevin Costner movie where he plays a darker role is Mr. Brooks. It's kind of a horror thriller movie where he plays a serial killer. That movie, definitely an excellent one. I would highly recommend checking out. This is set in the very early 60s, probably 63, because they mentioned John F. Kennedy's going to come to town, and they're down in Texas. So, 63, John F. Kennedy passed away when he goes down there, and so it's very sad. And I like the feel of the time as well, kind of the dark and gritty Texas back roads where they're traveling through. And like I said, I feel like this is definitely a very underrated movie, and I would definitely recommend this for Clint Eastwood fans, acting and directing. And there's the back right there. And this is another release by Warner Brothers Home Entertainment, and they did a great job on this release as well. It does look and sound far superior than the DVD release, which I personally own. And again, very underrated movie. Definitely one I would say check out. And next up is another Clint Eastwood directed and starring movie, Bloodwork. This one I feel is really formulaic and predictable, but still enjoyable. And this is a great supporting cast. You have Angelica Houston, Paul Rodriguez, Dylan Walsh, and then Jeff Daniels. Jeff Daniels, I just found his character to be really entertaining. Like I said, I feel like this movie is very predictable and formulaic, but it's still very enjoyable, and one that I would recommend if you're into Clint Eastwood movies. It's basically a crime drama action movie where Clint Eastwood's character is an FBI profiler, and he's basically recovering from a heart transplant, and he's supposed to take it easy, but it gets really involved in this case, and he's trying to figure out all the different clues. And, by the end of it, you figure out what happens, and it all comes together, and it all makes sense, and like I said, predictable, but enjoyable. It's a popcorn crime thriller. Definitely one I'd say check out, though, if you're a Clint Eastwood fan. Some good action sequences, some good tension here and there, but it is formulaic, but still enjoyable. So there you go, Bloodwork by Warner Brothers Home Entertainment. So there you go, they're my 5 Blu-ray releases. If you've seen any of them, definitely let me know what you think of them. Leave me a comment or video response down below. Hope everyone's doing well. Take care.